You pick up your phone, you open Instagram or TikTok, you scroll for a few minutes, then you put it down, and somehow you feel worse than before. Not just bored, actually worse. Lonelier, smaller, like your life is somehow less than. That feeling is not an accident. It was designed, and today we are going to talk about exactly how that works. Let's start with a simple truth. Social media platforms are not built to connect you. They are built to keep you on the platform as long as possible. Connection is the pitch, attention is the product. And the most powerful way to hold your attention is to make you feel something. And anxiety and comparison are two of the most effective emotional hooks ever discovered. Here is how it works at a basic level. Every time you get a like, a comment, or a new follower, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. That is the same chemical involved in gambling, sugar, and other compulsive behaviors. The platform figured out how to plug directly into that system. And once they had you chasing that feeling, they could show you whatever kept you chasing it. Sean Parker, one of the early presidents of Facebook, actually admitted this publicly back in 2017. He said they were consciously building something that exploited a vulnerability in human psychology. His words, not mine. The goal was a social validation feedback loop. They knew they built it anyway because it worked. And the algorithm is not neutral. It does not just show you things randomly. It learns what makes you stop scrolling. And content that triggers envy, outrage, or insecurity tends to stop your thumb more reliably than content that makes you feel calm and satisfied. So the feed gets darker and more comparison heavy over time because that is what the machine has learned keeps you watching. The result is that your feed becomes a curated highlight reel of other people's best moments, their vacations, their bodies, their relationships, their income, and you are watching it from your couch in pajamas on a Tuesday. The mismatch is engineered. You were never meant to feel equal. You were meant to feel like you were almost there, just one more scroll away. Now, let's talk about something important. A lot of self-help content tells you to stop comparing yourself to others. Just focus on your own journey. And while the intention is good, that advice skips over one critical fact. You cannot stop comparing yourself. It is not a character flaw. It is a biological function built into how humans process the world. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger introduced what he called social comparison theory. His research showed that humans have a fundamental drive to evaluate themselves by comparing to others. We do it to understand where we stand, what is possible, and whether we are doing okay. It is how our ancestors figured out if they were keeping up with the group. Losing the group meant death. Comparison was survival. The problem is not that you compare. The problem is what you are comparing yourself to. In the past, you compared yourself to your neighbors, your coworkers, your community, people living real, ordinary lives with real limitations. Today, you compare yourself to carefully edited, filtered, and strategically selected versions of thousands of people's best moments. That was never what your brain evolved to handle. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania ran a study in 2018 that found limiting social media use to 30 minutes per day significantly reduced loneliness and depression in college students after just 3 weeks. Not eliminating it, just limiting it. The comparison did not stop, but the volume was turned down enough for people to breathe again. And here's another layer to this. When you compare yourself upward and feel bad, that feeling is real. It is not weakness. It is your nervous system responding to a perceived gap. But the gap is almost always false. You are comparing your full interior life, your doubts, your bad days, your private struggles to someone else's public exterior. It is never an honest comparison. Let's talk about connection because one of the biggest lies social media sells is that it keeps you connected. And in a technical sense, yes, you can message anyone on the planet in seconds. But neuroscience tells us that this kind of digital interaction does not actually fulfill the human need for belonging the same way real connection does. And that gap is a big part of why you feel lonely. When you are physically with another person, your brain and body do things they simply cannot do through a screen. Eye contact activates oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. Shared laughter, touch, and even just being in the same physical space synchronizes your nervous system with theirs. Neuroscientists call this co-regulation. It is deeply calming, and it is something a like notification cannot replicate. Nicholas Carr, in his book The Shallows, argues that the internet is not just changing what we do, it is changing how our brains work at a structural level. Constant digital stimulation trains our brains towards shallow, fragmented attention. And that same fragmentation bleeds into how we relate to people. We get worse at being present, and you cannot truly connect with someone you are not present with. And there is something ironic happening here. The more time you spend performing your life for social media, the less time you spend actually living it. You document the meal instead of tasting it. You film the concert instead of feeling it. You craft the caption instead of having the conversation. The performance of connection slowly replaces the experience of it, and you end up lonelier than before you posted. This is not about demonizing technology. You can use it well. Video calls kept families together during a pandemic. Online communities have saved lives. The problem is passive, unconscious consumption, scrolling for hours without intention. That specific habit is what the research consistently links to loneliness, lower self-esteem, and decreased life satisfaction. The tool is not evil. The habit can be. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that people who use social media passively, just browsing without posting or interacting, reported significantly higher levels of envy and depression than those who used it actively and with purpose. How you use it matters enormously. Scrolling and consuming is a very different act than reaching out and genuinely connecting. So, what do you do with all of this? First, let's be honest. There is no perfect solution. You will still compare yourself to others. The platforms are still going to try to hook you. None of that changes overnight. But what you can change is where you consistently point your attention. And over time, that matters more than any single decision you make. Here is something worth sitting with. If watching other people's lives hurts you because you compare yourself to them, that pain is telling you something. It is not telling you that you are a failure. It is telling you that you care about your own growth. That desire is healthy. The question is whether you're going to use it as fuel or let the algorithm burn it up in your face every day. Consider this. What if you took even a fraction of the time you spend watching other people build their lives and pointed it at building your own? Not perfectly, not dramatically, just consistently. Small actions toward your actual goals, your fitness, your relationships, your career, your creative work. The gap between you and the life you want closes through repeated small steps, not through watching others take theirs. Self-love is not a bubble bath or an affirmation you repeat in the mirror. Real self-love looks like making choices that align with who you actually want to become. It looks like protecting your attention from things that consistently make you feel smaller. It looks like showing up for your own life with the same energy you spend admiring someone else's. You do not need to quit social media tomorrow, but consider setting some intentional rules for yourself. Give your phone a bedtime, unfollow accounts that consistently make you feel less than. Replace 20 minutes of scrolling with something that actually moves your life forward. A walk, a book, a conversation, a skill you are building. The goal is not perfection. The goal is direction. And here is the honest truth about comparison. The people whose lives look perfect on Instagram are also comparing themselves to someone else. Everyone is. The person you envy is also scrolling someone's feed and wondering why they are not further along. This game has no winners. The only exit is to stop playing it as the main event in your life and start making your own progress the measure that matters. You can do this, not because life is easy or because the platforms are going to stop trying to pull you back, but because awareness is the first and most powerful step. You now understand the system, you know what it is doing and why, and knowing that gives you something most people scrolling right now do not have: a choice, a real one. If this video made you think differently about how you use social media, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on the psychology of attention and digital habits, check out The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. Link in the description. Subscribe for more videos on psychology, technology, and building a life that actually feels like yours.